But I still don't know who the end user is. I don't know if it's entertainment tech. Okay. Well, I'll ask it. Movie theaters are a problem.
Are you guys here?
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Everybody in?
Let me start with an icebreaker. Who was in the presentation that we gave last year talking about decarbonization lessons learned so far?
Are there any questions?
Any questions? No. So we're going to continue that conversation, right? So, and I think at the end of the last year's presentation, what I believe I said was, come back next year, we'll have more information to share, and we do. And we didn't quite match the topic. I didn't match the slide, which was the good, the bad, and in some cases, we set the other part of the portion of it. We have plenty of good, we have plenty of bad, and we have plenty of the other thing that we don't want to talk about. I'm Tim Cohen. I'm Director of Sustainable Design, if I can say that, get it all out, from National Community Renaissance. We're a developer builder of affordable housing, servicing mostly Southern California, anywhere from San Diego, right on the entry point from Mexico, inland, Riverside County, San Bernardino, Orange County, kind of all over Southern California. We have a footprint in Texas, we have a footprint in Florida. It was very interesting listening to Glenn's presentation because I've got to start thinking about those models in other states and how you take these lessons from California into other states. Mac Mitchell is with me from my team at National Corps. Mac is going to chime in periodically with information, but I'm going to fly through the slides here because I've got a full hour that I'm going to condense into 50 minutes so we can have some interaction and some banter back and forth. So if we get to something, raise a hand. If it's quick, I'll answer it quickly as we go. Otherwise, hold it to the very end. National Community Renaissance, regional developer, builder of affordable housing. You guys got all of that. We're deeply committed to sustainability. New construction, we do everything all electric. We've been doing it for years, all electric, cost neutral. Zero net energy now, we'll talk about that. No natural gas, saying goodbye to the gas company. Any representatives from the gas company? Melinda, you see anybody from the gas company?
Not right now.
Are we safe?
You're safe for
Safe
now.
environment, thank you. Okay. And
Friendly crowd.
if they come looking for me, they'll get to Melinda first, right? So we've been recognized nationally as a power builder by the U.S. Green Building Council. I think it's 6 years running now. I think we're the only repeat developer builder on that list, and we just do it year over year. It's kind of in our DNA. It's what we do at National Corps. And if you remember the conversation that I had last year when I got up here, new construction is just, it's so fun. It's just so easy. It's like there's nothing to worry about. Just do the same thing over and over again. It's the existing buildings that are a real challenge for us. And I put this up, this is from last year. I'm like, it's about the data. This is how much money we spend at National Corps every year for our utilities. And if you look at the numbers, this is last year, October 2022 to September 23, coinciding with the CABEC conference last year, $1 million in natural gas. And I was like, well, we're gonna continue the conversation. Where are we now? And so suddenly I look at it, I'm like, $622,000 for natural gas. Well, how's that working? I mean, we've built 5 new projects, we've added 300 new units, we've added square footage, but our gas spend is going down. And everybody knows that's because the utility rates for gas are going down, right? Everybody agree? No, this is like, again, this is, a little bit of Joel, like more action, less talk. And I looked at this and I was just like, well, we haven't really been measuring it all. I just have to put the slide up here, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of remarkable. Electricity has gone up slightly, but not significantly. We're adding square footage. I'm okay with that, right? If you look at the total energy cost here for National Corps, it has gone down, even while we've added square footage. So these ideas of, does this work? Are we on the right path? We sort of thought it worked, and we had some instincts, so I'm like, come back this year, we'll have some more information. But now when I put data up like this, I'm like, does anybody doubt it? It's like, we all have, I believe, collectively good instincts. And I was telling Will, when Will walked in this morning, I don't see him, but I was like, I think we're on the right path. We've all thought we were on the right path, but when you look at the data and you see the actual results, even if you're not out there reporting and measuring it, it's actually working, it's remarkable. right? So electricity costs and natural gas down $128,000, down 4%, even though we added more square footage. And it's not just like 50 units here, it's like we usually have between 5 and 10 construction sites going at one time. So we stare at the energy trends all the time. I'm staring at a dashboard like this. This is our carbon footprint, right? So it's gone, this is common area only when we're looking at WEGO-wise, but it is a reflection of the whole building. Because as we're benefiting in common areas, we're bringing solar and electrification to our residents, and we can't necessarily track their utility bills like we track ours. But if our carbon footprint has gone down 25%, 24% in the last 5 years, that means everybody's going down. The trend line is down, and it's going to continue to go down, as I'm going to show you through some of the next shots. Does anybody know what this is? Anybody stare at this graph like I do? The CABEC, where's the energy coming from? And this was on Monday, I think. Like big curve in the middle, like, hey, sun is out, we're killing it, right? On solar. And if you look at this line here, this purple line that goes negative, what's that? Yes, look at how much it's climbing, right? And gas is coming, the sun goes down, I gotta turn on the natural gas, but slowly that battery line is starting to eat up the natural gas. There's hope on the horizon. This is working, right? It works for the state. It works for organizations like National Core at the same time, and for our residents. I put this up last year, I want to go back to it because it's such an important graph. And I was talking to Pierre at lunch. Where's Pierre? Yeah, we were talking about this, and like, here's the graph of how many units of affordable housing there are in the state of California. 2 million units of affordable housing, right, existing. And it's going to cost us how much money? 70% of all California households depend on fossil fuels, right? Gotta decarbonize everything by 2045. SB 100, right? You know, my questions about SB 100. Misty, Aaliyah, I hit you guys with this. I'm like, well, we're looking at it. Is everybody else looking at this? Hey, we're supposed to be hitting that target, I believe. I thought it was a law, right? And it's gonna cost between $10,000 and $40,000 per unit to decarbonize these existing affordable housing units. Do the math. $25,000 a unit, that's $48 billion between now and 2045 in affordable housing alone. So we need to spend $2.2 billion per year more in our decarbonization efforts, right? How did we do last year? I put up this slide last year. Does anybody know how much we spent in decarbonization in California last year? I don't know, like tech and SGID, 300 million there, 400 million there, not even close. And people are freaking out, like, who follows tech and SGID when the funds are available, right? How quickly do they go, Misty? Immediately, like it's like a lottery. You got to be there on day one. Mac, how soon are we there when they open it up?
Near immediately.
And it's gone. And we're like, cool, we cashed in because Mac was ready. Mac was ready to run it, but we've got to do more of that if we're really going to achieve this. And how do you do that with existing affordable housing? It's really coming from somewhere. Is Taylor here? Taylor, so I asked you this question yesterday. It's like, hey, you're going to decarbonize your existing buildings, raise the rents, right? Do that with everybody else, but you can't do that with regulated affordable housing. You can't raise the rents, you can't raise the utility allowances. And it's $25,000 a unit. Where's that money going to come from? That's the question. I don't have the answer yet. Mac is really good at stacking incentives. Pierre's got some great ideas. I was hearing it today. Like, I'm like, there's another opportunity. More stack, because we want to be able to do this. NEM 3.0. Nick's not here because I'm recording for Nick. Hi, Nick. Nick gave a great presentation on the impact of NEM 3.0. Thankfully, we fought tooth and nail to get deed restricted affordable housing exempt from that conversation, because it would have just kneecapped us. Like, there's other obstacles we have, but that would have really hit us. So I'm putting it up here, even though we don't have to pay attention to it, right? The conversations I'm having now, thankfully, affordable housing is exempt. So we're able to look at things like SOMA, solar on multifamily affordable housing. Anybody using SOMA? Anybody working with affordable housing developers? You have to be using SOMA. Do it on existing, do it on new construction. It is the pathway forward. It's free money. I think I'll skip the video. Yeah, but it's $1 billion, $100 million annually. Couldn't spend it quickly enough in existing buildings. So they decided, I thought it was a bad idea, They said, we're not spending it fast enough, we'll go into new construction. They'll allow you to use it in new construction. I was like, well, how about allowing us to decarbonize those buildings that we're letting solar on and do that at the same time? They're like, no, it's carbon, cap and trade funding, get rid of carbon, more solar. Stupid, I think, but it's like, hey, new construction, we'll play the game, we're going into new construction now. Everything that we do in National Core right now is zero net energy, zero carbon. Like, if we have carports, if we have surface parking carports, as much solar as you can land on that site, so that we can land as much solar, we can get carbon neutrality. If we run out of, we don't have a parking lot, and we have a 5-story building, hang the solar off the south side of the building, the west side of the building. Soma will pay for it. You can get those projects to zero net energy. We're doing that, right?
Soma covers carports?
Soma will, the tax credits may cover part of the carports, but now that we don't have to buy solar because Soma's gonna pay for it, now we can take the money that we had allocated for Title 24 solar to pay for the carports, if we have to. In many cases, Soma's coming to us, the deal that we're working with, anybody from Sunrun here? Anybody from another solar vendor? Okay, Sunrun has sort of pioneered this help write the legislation. We have a 7-year relationship with those guys, and they're doing us right. They are treating us right, and they've brought the cost down for us to own and operate the solar systems on our buildings to zero. No dollar up front. I don't want to own the solar system. Mac doesn't want to own the solar system, because when they break, we got to fix it. And then we stare at it for weeks at a time. We're like, you think it's an internet problem? Do you think it's down? And then suddenly it's down. It's like, how are they going to fix this? Can you call the electrician to get out there and then hope that your mapping is right on the inverters, and when it's not, suddenly you're flipping panels looking for the bad optimizer? It's awful. So don't own solar if you're multifamily and affordable if you can avoid it. SSAs, have somebody else own it. $0 SSAs is what we love, and then there's a performance guarantee. If the system goes down and it's not operating, you pay me a penalty, right? I want 1 or 2 cents a kilowatt hour, so I know that when it goes down, you're gonna fix it. Soma's a big deal. It's a game changer for us. When you do Soma, you cannot use, as for new construction or existing, you cannot use the QAC, the solar from the QAC to benefit your QAC to lower your costs. It is a gift to the residents. I'm okay with that, because it's saving us $1 million or more on solar on our projects, okay? More on Soma, let me fly past it. Game changing though. This is where, what this conversation is about fuel switching. You can't do fuel switching without rooftop solar in most areas in California. You can get pretty damn close in some areas, and I'll show you some graphs why that is so. But it is game changing for us and for our residents. To date, I updated this from last year. We're on 10 new projects or 12 new projects this year. We're at 16.5 megawatts of solar Soma paid for on our existing portfolio. We've leveraged $25 million in available rebates for Soma plus MASH. A couple of projects at the very beginning had MASH funding. We got that money. Without coming out of pocket, the deal with us and Sunrun is, hey, we don't pay for anything. It's got to be rebate only. It's got to benefit our residents, and our costs need to go down by about 40%, right? So no money up front. Our costs go down 40%, our residents benefit, Soma pays for it. Raise your hand if you think that's a bad deal. Right? And so I take these conversations into new construction, it's kind of the same thing. It's no money down. It's $0 SSA for 20 years. If it breaks, you fix it. If it goes down, you're gonna pay me a penalty. And at the end of 20 years, there's a fair market value purchase if we need to do that. And I'm okay with that. Yes.
Sorry, is that 40%, is that a guarantee you're getting on it then?
No,
or is
no, it's a
that
target.
your
You'll see it, like
Okay.
you saw my little target, Carol, you'll see
Okay.
that, you'll see we're tracking it.
Nice.
And utility rates go up, so now you gotta factor in escalation. It's like 40% compared to what? Now you gotta factor in escalation. A
Tim.
little bit complicated. Yes,
On
Joe?
the new construction Soma, is there like administrative, regulatory risk of timing? You gotta get a billing bill, your solar's gotta get mobilized, Sunrun gets the money when they need to.
Who's from the utility companies here? Dave's here, I see Dave. Anybody else? SDG&E? Okay, we're pretty safe. Okay, this is not a criticism. The biggest obstacle for us in Soma and any new PV installation is getting the utility companies to turn the system on first. Get the PTO.
Sunrun in charge of that, or you?
Sunrun has to coordinate it. The PV installer has to coordinate it. We're involved because we've got to make sure they can see all the utility accounts. We got to make sure they get access. The utility inspectors get access and stuff like that. So we're involved, but we try to have the solar installer doing most of the coordination. Takes a while to get PTO. It can take a week. It can take 6 months. It can take 9 months.
But that doesn't delay construction necessarily.
No, this is at the end of construction.
You got it all-
It delays other things,
Conduits,
which
all that's
if we
all
have
there.
time, I'll talk about. The penalties to us, you get the system turned on, great, you're juicing electrons into the grid. You should be making money. The next question when you're dealing with solar is, when do I get my true-up credits? Right, so, hey, congratulations, the system's on, okay? It's producing energy, and then you stare at your bill for the next 3 months, you're like, credits? They're like, oh, no, the accounting will catch up to you eventually. I have a project in SDG&E territory, they PTO'd it within a week of occupancy. We busted our asses to get the system turned on. And I'm at 20 months later, SDG&E territory without a true-up credit. That project, $20,000 a year was supposed to be our target common area electricity expenses. In 20 months, we spent $115,000 in common area expenses. Our residents at the same time had a Q Act that said their bills were gonna be $20 to $25 a month. They're paying $200 a month. So at this point, with SDG&E, you call them, you get into these conversations, and they say, I'm gonna send an email to the NEM department. And I'm like, well, can I talk to them? They're like, there's nobody there, I'll send them an email. So I do that a couple of months, and then finally, the last conversation I had with them, I said, I rattled the cage at the PUC loud enough, I know who to talk to. My next phone call is to the PUC. So PUC finally gets in, they said, you don't hear a result in 10 days. Now you will elevate, you'll file a formal complaint. I think, I've been talking about legislative cures. The PUC person I talked to said, you should be talking to your lawmakers. My senior management team said, hey, that's criminal. And I'm like, technically it's not. That's why we want to write a law.
They pay
right?
you back?
Huh?
Do they pay you back, like retroactive?
Not yet. They will, and then as soon as they do, when you get into this conversation, is how do you account for everything that they owe you? So you got to be very, very careful in tracking, which is why our conversation about solar tracking is so important, because there's money on the table.
Yeah.
Okay, we trust the process. It's just going to take us a long time to get there. So SOMA and fuel switching is such a valuable component, you guys, in this. You cannot do fuel switching in most areas without rooftop solar. Okay, it just doesn't make sense. So you've got to start stacking incentives, and this is what MAC does for our team. We identify where the big opportunities are in our portfolio, especially central gas, and we go after that natural gas. The first slide I showed where we went down $300,000 in natural gas in a year, it's like, that's the dividend that's paid from taking all of this rebate money and applying it to our projects on top of the SOMA funding. We're not doing any money out of pocket on these fuel switchings right now, and it's paying us dividends. So you gotta go after this funding. And here are the projects that MAC queues in our portfolio to go chase, like 10 at a time, okay? And some of these are from last year, so when we get into this and we start looking at these conditions, some of this might look a little bit familiar, but now the measurement and verification information is updated. So this is Rancho Verde, our very first one. CEC funded, they gave us a pilot grant from Tech, $900,000 or so to do this. We're very keen on, even though this is what I call the old Yeller boiler, like it's ready to be taken on back and shot. Right? And as we're doing this, I was telling Melinda the story the other day, they're dying, and the gas company's looking over the fence, they're going, hey, I got some new boilers over here. Shiny and new. And they did that for years, and I'm going in the shiny new boiler, and I look at the efficiency of it, and it's like 83% efficient. And I'm like, that was cutting edge in 2005. And like, you're giving us that now. And I know I've said this before, but it's like somebody trying to smoke, and here comes the tobacco company giving you low tar cigarettes. These will kill you slower, right? They're free. And I've got those projects where we took $1 million from the gas company, and I look at, and our gas prices at those properties has gone up like 20 to 25%. They just love that. So as soon as they started doing that, I think the PUC finally put their foot down and said, you can't just give stuff like that away. You can't. So we go into Rancho Verde, 248 units, aging central gas system, a whole lot of problems, a bunch of incentive money, including a bunch from the Tech pilot, which is great, and we do this, right? This is our heat pump of choice, right? So Sandco boilers, where's Albert? Yeah, so I mean, this is what we do. Albert knows, because last year when we get to one of the ugly projects, we had a great conversation about how you troubleshoot to make sure that these projects work correctly. hot water here into the storage tank, deliver it just like you do. It's pumping out water at 150 degrees, put into a tank, tempered down to 120, delivered to the residents. Diagram looks something like that. Each one of those has 4 outdoor Sandco units, storage tank, and an electric resistant swing tank. The Sandcos do not like water that is not cold, right, Albert?
Correct.
55 degrees, 60 degrees, but they love it, right? COPs of 3.5. More, great. But as soon as you want, if you want to feed it 70 or 80 degree temperature, they're like, I don't know what to do, Dad. Yeah. And then they just go into paralysis and the COPs go down to like 2 or something crazy. So hot water has to be delivered at 120. And it's always a little bit of a stretch for us when we do this, when we get them rolling in, get them commissioned, get them just right. The Sandcos can sometimes be a little bit temperamental. There's 4 of them together. One of them decides, I got tired, I'm not gonna work, and you gotta look at the piping diagram to make sure it's piped correctly. You gotta have a good partner with this. We work with bottom line utilities a lot because they just nail it. And then you gotta combine it with solar. So here's the performance curve from the solar from Sunrun. So you gotta match the solar to the heat pump. And this is pre-fuel switch. So we did the solar system out there based on the old load. So we wanna go back now and add more solar to get to the new demand from the hot water heating. This is when, not to get political, but that was when Trump was the president and he shut down the government agencies. If you go to like the NASA sites, you see the gaps for like years when they turned off the set. That's what happened there, I think. It's my only explanation. I'm recording right now, so I hope this doesn't end up so, but this is where like the rubber hits the road for us. Yes?
For the stand-ins, is that your set, you're not doing any other experimenting with central heat pump water heating? Or are you still looking around?
It's a great question, Conrad, and we are doing a pilot. We've got a little while, and Ken can raise his hand because we're partnering with Mitsubishi on another tech project. So it's not just.
I'm not knocking the stand-in, I'm just wondering if, because it's still an evolving world.
Stay away from Colmac and Nile if you care about funding, it's my opinion. And because we know projects who are doing those affordable, where the old engineers who were working in the 1990s who want a 299,000 BTU unit come in and say, oh, you gotta go with Sandco. And it costs $200,000 more for a 50 unit project. I have a hotel conversion right now with the engineer who put in 2 of them for 50 units. 1 Sandco, 2 Sandcos, or two Colmacs, side by side. And I'm like, that's the most expensive system in the market right now. You're putting in 2. He's like, oh yeah, if one goes down, we need the other one. I'm like, here's my hand. I mean, put some money in my hand. But the important thing here is this is what we're looking at Rancho Verde. Where are we with cost before and after? Like, so if you look at this, what we want more than anything is this is the moment we installed. Here, green line is energy cost before. We've tweaked it, we got it fine-tuned and started to operate. It doesn't have enough solar on site to match the added load from the heat pump water heater, but this one is now, this is when you get a climate credit from the gas company. Once a year it goes down, which we should probably level out. But now it's comfortably below in SCE territory, it's beating the rates. And as soon as you put in additional solar, now you're making money, right? This one is now cash flowing when we factor in escalation, $58,000. Gas company, $127,000 before. Gas company after, $20,000 credit because we got our climate credit, even though we're no longer really customers. Thank you. But this is it, right? It's annuity payments to the utility companies, or especially the gas company, where you start going after that as potential revenue when you're building affordable housing. That's where the real opportunity is. Corona del Rey was another one I showed you guys last year. 160 units of affordable, 42 central gas water heaters or boilers, replaced it with Sandcos. Looks like this. This was before the installation was in, sort of in process. Here's the installation in. And we hung them outside, get them up, on the side of the building, keep them away from people as much as you possibly can. Insulate the water lines really nicely. Bottom line utilities does great work for us. That's the simple diagram, 2 of the units, no swing tank on this one. And overall, a whole bunch of rebate money, 1.2, right, Mac?
For the DHW 1.2, we're now going into the greater rehab work.
Great. And so, and there's other, we're doing a larger rehab on this one, not tax credit funding, trying to stack funding. A little bit of before, after photos of the rehab, we got some realized money to do 2 units, which was a different graph. Melinda, yes?
What does ESH stand for?
Energy smart homes.
Yeah, it
Great question. So,
does. Shameless plug.
unlike other requirements, other funding sources, Energy Smart Homes has a requirement to do 1 physical act at the end of the fuel switch, which is what, Mac?
Electrify.
And do what with the?
Well, remove the gas meters.
Remove the gas meter. So it's like the last act, and it's like you call the gas company to remove it. It takes them like 3 weeks to get out. They're like, yeah, we'll get out there. So this is where we were last year, right? Like this is before, this is after. No solar on this one because we're doing a rehab, and we've got SOMA funding for it, and we don't want to do the SOMA funding in this because it would trigger prevailing wages. So we want to make sure we wait until we're done with the rehab. Okay, so looked like this last year. Fancy graphics here, and here we are now. Right? This is updated now, and again, green line below escalation. Orange line is we built an escalation. This was out without any solar. And come January, when the rehab is finally done, we don't have to worry about tainting funds and stuff like that. We go in and we add the solar, and now what's going to happen is that green line is going to push way down below that, right? So this is, again, it works, the fuel switching works without solar in some climates. SCEs, their utility rates are forgiving, okay? Sierra Vista, on the other hand, 192 units in SDG&E territory, San Marcos. I showed you guys this last year. This was one of the ugly from last year, right? There's the old system, nice Ray Pack or something, one of those 399,000 BTU boilers. And we go in and we do this. And we did this in a enclosed room with vents, a lot of vents. Who are the mechanical engineers? Anybody? Okay, great. Well, we put it in enclosed rooms. We had, anybody from AEA here? Anybody from EPRI here? Sweet, those were our technical consultants on this project. And they looked at it and they're like, yeah, this looks pretty good, A-okay. We did it, and we were so freaked out about operating costs, which I'll show you in a second, but we weren't thinking about the temperature in the room. Okay, so it's putting out 55-degree air. And we got enough ventilation, we think it's okay. They put in a couple motorized fans high originally, and the cold air is coming off and it's plunging to the ground and just sitting there, and suddenly it's chilling down the inside wall, and suddenly October, November roll around when the dew point temperature gets right around dry bulb, and you've got cold conditions in this room. On the other side of it, you have a heated room with crappy insulation. What happens inside the wall cavity? Building science. Condensation, right? So suddenly I was getting these calls about, hey, we got this mold on the bottom of the inside wall associated with your job. And I was just like, are you kidding me? So we're kind of dealing with that now. We're looking for a solution, and we were going to move them to the roof of this, but I think it creates a whole lot of problems. I didn't put the photo in there. The Sancos have a condensate pan on the very bottom, down in here, and it's going to collect drip, drip, drip. And if it's outside, it's going to collect all of the dirt in the air. We got eucalyptus trees all over, and we opened up a couple that we did locate outside, and we got muck in the condensate pan. So I'm like, keep them inside the room. Let's just increase the ventilation, please. The mechanical engineer comes in and says to do that. So that's kind of what we're working through now. That is one of the uglies. Okay, so suddenly when you have $90,000 worth of remediation associated with potential mold that you've got to eat in your project, I'm like, they're yelling at me, and I'm like, we're gonna make some mistakes here. Like, this is, unfortunately, it's like me giving these speeches like, this is what leadership looks like. You know? You've gotta be prepared to make mistakes. And they're like the guy who's managing the problem is like, he's in New York and he's slamming his shoe on the table, he's ready to throw it at me, and he's like, you can shut that up, and and I'm like, it'll be okay, there's gonna be savings, we'll pay you back in 6 years. Right? So the diagram looks something like that, and then this is where we were last year. This is another ugly. So we have very smart technical consultants on the job with us, AEA and EPRI, and I love those guys. They're so smart, and we trusted them. And I'm looking at this, and it's going up, this much. It goes up like $30,000 in a single month. Like in 3 months, it was like, hey, our bills have gone up $120,000, and this is an economically distressed property. And literally in that one, Dan Lorraine, our head of property management, was on a call with me, just screaming at me. Sorry, Dan, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. Yeah, I know it's my ass. Yeah, my resume does look good. I think I could get a job somewhere else. I'm having these conversations, and it's just like, it's gonna be okay. Slowly over time, this is gonna get better. This is where we were last year. And we just finished, we accelerated the solar on it. Solar's not there yet, but here is, we solved the problem. We're living in SDG&E territory, but the lesson about your technical consultants, make sure they do the economic analysis on this. They did it. They showed us like, hey, this many therms, this many kWh, and they used 18 cents for the cost of electricity. And I'm like, I'm on the phone with them. Matt could probably attest to this, and I'm like screaming at them. I'm like, you guys, our bills are time of use rates in San Diego, 80 cents between 4 and 9, not 18. Did nobody do this analysis? And it's just like birds chirping, crickets in the background, and that's where we were. And then I learned after that, it's like, trust your consultants, but always verify. You got to do the analysis yourself. But it's panning out. And solar is on. It's our largest SOMA-funded system. It's like 600 kW. It's crazy. You go out there, everywhere there's solar. There's a lot of units. We expect next year when you come back that this thing is going to be way down, right? Proof is there. Even in SDG&E, it's so important in SDG&E. Get the solar on the building first, turn it on, talk to the utility companies. They'll work with you if you can justify the added loads to get the system turned on even before you introduce the fuel switching. SCE, like when Michelle was around, Dave, I was talking to Michelle Thomas, she was like, hey, we'll make it work, don't worry about it. I'm like, and if it gets turned on early, we'll donate the energy to you guys. We don't care. I mean, what's the harm? And Michelle got it at SCE. It was really great. Arbor Villas, another one we're working on. We had this one last year. This one was a little bit of ugly. Started our conversations with Albert because this was the whole, you got to deliver water at 120 degrees. 67 units, 8 central gas boilers, Sanco's, $280,000 worth of incentives. Total project cost, $280, right? Different installer. This was not Bottom Line Utilities, but Bottom Line Utilities came in and fixed it. And a lot of times, like, people were giving me crap about, you know, some of the systems not working correctly, and they were saying, Bottom Line Utilities not doing great work. And then I'm like, have you seen the other guys? Like, I'm putting that up here, and I'm like, it's okay, but it's another guy, plumber, who came in who we worked with. They're like, oh, I can do this. It's just air conditioning. It's like if you're doing Sanco's, like Albert, if somebody comes to you and says that, hey, I'm an air conditioning guy, I can do your system. It's like, do you?
We don't even sell individual site-built systems without 2 steps of approval anymore.
Right, you can't, because, and then it's like, it's not air conditioning. And when this system went down, I think we've got some shots of, when the system goes down, this is when Albert came up to me last year and he's like, I think we can help you. So when the system goes down, I'm telling you, on a Friday night, and people are coming home and the water's like 90 degrees or something, like the crazy temperature here, when it suddenly drops, like 109 degrees, it's getting lukewarm, the residents are calling and they're freaking out, and they're calling me. And I'm calling the original installer. I'm like, you guys, hey, that system you just turned on, it's 109 degrees. Can you guys get your guy out there to fix it? He's in Las Vegas. He won't be back till Tuesday. So that was our relationship, and I called Dave at Bottom Line Utilities, who wasn't involved at all, and Dave's like, I'll have a guy out there in 2 hours. So knowing who your installers are and being able to trust, this is not something you do on your own. You gotta build a team, you gotta trust these people. You grab your resources when you can. You grab Albert when you run into a problem. He just looks at this stuff, he's like, I need to help you, because if you screw this up, then the rest of us are doomed, right? So we've gotta fix it. Here are the economics very early on at Arbor Villas, right? It's like, I think it's gonna be okay, you know, maybe, you know, I'm showing this to the property, head of property management, thinking, I think we got something here, right? Slowly, over time, here's where we are now, right? This is the money shot, right? This is just 67 units, but like, look what happened right there. Okay, we're struggling last year, early on, you guys came and saw this, I'm like, I think it's gonna be okay. I think I'll be back next year with my job. And then suddenly we turn on the PV and look at it now, right? Proof of concept. right? This is why you do it, and this is 67 units, and now I can go back to property management, and we've made 5,200 even after we've compensated for all the early losses, right? I paid it back, and now I've got bottom line utilities, so I'm just put it on my tab, we'll figure out how to pay you, but we're running, and I think bottom line utilities probably has a tab running with Albert, right? We'll figure out how to pay you guys eventually because we'll find the money through savings, and now I can go back to property management and say, project is now cash flowing, can I clear some of my bills, please?
And
It's
your
gonna work.
tenants are paying less here too?
No, this is all central right now, Joel. So everything that we're talking about right here is chase the big money. The stuff where you're spending $30 to $80 or $100,000 per year per project in natural gas. Centralized systems is where the big money is to start. Okay, we'll get into the tenant impact in just a second. Sycamore Springs, a project that is in progress for us. Melinda, this is one of yours. Like, we've had these moments of panic. When you start doing this, we got a huge electrification effort here. Hydronic systems, operated off an old natural gas boiler. We don't have the shot of the old, maybe it's in here somewhere, but we've got the old gas boiler that was providing domestic hot water and also domestic heat. And it was like 40 years old, and every year we'd have to do like mold remediation because the piping was dripping inside the units, and it's just like, we gotta get that out of there. But we go into to do the early engineering on this, and we've got rebate only, and Energy Smart Homes has given us this big chunk, but they're like, you gotta rip out the gas meter. I'm like, we know, we're gonna get there. We go in and we've got just enough electrical on-site capacity to do the Sanco changeouts. We don't have any more room, and we sit and plan check for like 4 months, because the plan checker's looking at it, they're like, no, give me some more load calculations. And then we give them the load calculations, they're like, no, I wanted yellow paper. So then it's like, oh, let me go get you yellow paper, right? So 4 months while it's languishing, in the meantime, Mac is every other week is like, Energy Smart Homes deadline is we gotta deliver those units by June 30th, we lose $400,000, right? And so I'm going back to management, sold this as rebate only, based on these incentives, and they're about to expire, and somehow Bottom Line Utilities talks to the right people at Energy Smart Homes before I get Melinda's number. I'm like, hey, please give us an extension. Because suddenly it's not just, rebate only, suddenly like the property's gotta come up with $400,000 because we lost that rebate money, sorry. Right, not a good conversation, but we worked it out, and we're gonna deliver it by the end of the year, and I think you guys are working with us a little bit, otherwise I'm calling you.
Okay.
Right, the Citrus Grove, another one that we're working on right now, pretty simple. Just like Arbor Villa is just a couple on the wall, or Corona Del Rey, just a couple on the wall, real simple diagram here, 2 of these feeding into a tank, no swing tank needed. Looks like that. Here's the PV on the roof, and we haven't added PV yet to supplement this. We only did residential SOMA originally, but we gotta keep an eye on performance. Like, this is where we're supposed to be, right? Performance guarantee, okay? This is where we are. This impacts residents, right? So when it's down here, or it dips down here, it's like, you gotta call your vendor and say, what's going on with my production? You guys have a guarantee of delivering 80% of what we've promised you. If it ever falls before 80%, we're gonna do a true-up at the end of the year, and you're writing me a check, okay? Some of our projects, I didn't put them up here, but they'll be like, yeah, we think you got a shade issue with your trees, right? You gotta trim those trees. And I go on to, we look at it, and we're like, there's like 2 trees. It's a massive array. I'm like, get somebody out there to look at your system and have it produce, please. They're really good. Sunrun is great to work with. These are their analytics. But what we need to get better at our team is looking at this monthly to make sure that the system is running or working correctly. When it's not, you have a real problem. If I have time, I'll tell a story on that. Plaza at Sierra, Conrad. So here's your system. You asked a question about, do we do other systems? This is a really complicated project for us. Very dense boiler concentration here. 2 big boilers, probably 399,000 BTUs each, sitting in a room, ducting coming out, pretty simple, pretty straightforward, some storage tanks. How do you replace that? Where do we put my sand coats? I need like 20 of them. Just put them below everybody's window, and nobody will notice. So we got a grant from the CEC. Those are I told Mac we had to put this in there. This is what we do with the boilers. We put them on the curb, right? Put them on the curb. I'm gonna text this to the people at the gas company and say, this is what we're doing with your equipment, right? And then we come in, brand new pad, and this is a Mitsubishi heat pump boiler. Brand new technology. We've been working very closely with Ken and his team at Mitsubishi who are making this possible. More expensive than Sanco, but if you look at the cost per ton, I think it might be an alternative. Like Ken, we were talking last night, I'm like, can you get me pricing on it? Because I think this could be a great solution for some of those small projects, right? But this is in action shot. So I'm like, Mac, you gotta take a couple shots of these because this is really, really hard. It's like they're your storage tanks. Bottom line utilities was freaking out. They're like, they had like 2 inches of space in the header to get the thing in, to stack the thing up. And then they built this massive manifold system. Like the Mitsubishis are very sophisticated. They require a lot of elaborate work. So they built this, bottom line utilities built this all back at their lab. I think they're taking lessons from you guys, Albert. They're looking at it and saying, hey, just let's build it back in the shop. They showed up, they put it in the truck, they put it in place, and they were so proud of that. And I'm like, take a picture of it. Gotta get that in there. This is really, really important. All the little details that happen here. Here's Plaza. Performance, right? This is what we're supposed to be getting, and this is like we're more than a year like this with Sunrun. Very good partners. We love them. They give us this data, and I'm like, this is your data. What the hell's going on? And originally they're like, yeah, we've been out there. Check the optimizers are all good. There's a tree issue. Right, and I'm like, it's not a tree issue. Go out there and fix it. So this is why we're desperately trying. You got to build in the monitoring into the system. We don't want to own the systems because if they do break, if this was my system and I owned this, I'd be like, what the hell's going on? Go out there, we'll pay Source Solar to go out there and turn the panels one at a time because we probably don't have a good diagram, test the optimizers, there goes $20,000. With this system with an SSA, hey Sunrun, get out there please. Yeah, and I'm counting, and I'm looking at the performance guarantee here, it's 5 cents a kilowatt hour, I'm gonna be counting, and you guys owe me some money at the end of the month, right? So now they've got motivation to go out there and do it, that we wanna test. Sycamore Springs, this is the boiler. Sorry, this is out of sequence slightly. Yeah, sorry. This is the boiler, one of the old yellow boilers. As we're doing this is the one where we have the Energy Smart Homes. As we're doing this, we got like, how many of these we got, Mac? Like 8? 9. As we're doing this, we're trying to find a way to stack all the rebates. One of the boilers dies. Like, and we're like a month before starting. So it dies and we're like, go ahead, buy a new gas boiler. We installed a brand new gas boiler, we repurposed one because we weren't ready for the change upgrade. You just had to suck it up and eat it. But these things in an imminent state of failure, get to them when they're dying. So you don't get stuck into a corner, you're like, gas boiler, where's the guy with the shiny new gas boilers from 2003? Yeah, the free ones, he's no longer around. We are chasing a lot, so like that's the journey that we're on right now. Like, and we wanted to make so much more progress on this. We're chasing a lot of GRRP funding. This is really big from the Inflation Reduction Act. It's got to be HUD qualified, and it's very, very competitive. We submitted applications in one previous round, Mac?
May and June.
Yeah, so we got in there in May and we're like, we have such needy properties. And you screw up one little detail on the application and they reject you. And so then we went in the last time and they said, it's your last time. My money's gone after this. So it's got to be perfect. We're holding our breath, I think, on 9 projects. Some in California, some in Texas, to see if we can pull this off. But that, if we do it, that money, $90,000 a unit. And the cost to do the fuel switch inside the unit, how much was it? Do you guys remember? 25, right? So $90,000. I'm like, I'm doing windows, I'm doing envelope, I'm gonna do EV chargers. Where's Mike? We'll be talking about EV chargers, right? So, like, that opens up a brand new door that doesn't exist with other funding. That is manna from heaven, right? But it exists for very few projects. So it's the other ones that we've got to figure out. And how do you get to the other ones? And this is all for me about, I have to be a libertarian and a capitalist in these conversations. Because not everybody in my organization believes that the peril of the climate crisis, right? We're not doing this because climate change is real and we got to do something about it. We're doing it because there's money to be made. And I go into these conversations and I'm like, do you want to save money or do you not want to save money? If you don't want to save money, what's your motivation? Tell me what your goal is. Because mine is to save the organization money. And then they're silent, they're like, yeah, it's pretty good, let's save money, right? And if you save money, you're gonna save carbon. So we're tracking, this is our CO2 footprint across the portfolio, AB 802 reporting. And if you're doing this in Portfolio Manager, this is really bad metrics in Portfolio Manager because they don't track renewables. They track only building energy. And they don't care, they're like, oh, if you want to do renewables, you gotta manually go in every single month and enter that stuff yourself to discount it. It's a nightmare, right? So we're waiting for the next tool, the next gen tool from the DOE to see if they will start making our lives easier. But if you look at this was us trying to get everything onto Portfolio Manager. Now you're seeing a bend downward. That's the natural gas. That's our fuel switching, right? And people are asking us about this. So I'm back to this. This is common area. Common area CO2. And we're going into Selma, we're decarbonizing these buildings. The whole building looks something like this, because what we do for ourselves, common areas are maybe 40% of the energy. So if we're going in and adding solar, Selma funded, zero net energy, we are dramatically impacting this. It is so much more than this, right? But this is just a reflection of where we are. We're interested in this, we want to do more action, right? We want to do it, but at the same time, we do want to count because we want to report back. People are asking us, I would like to sell carbon offset credits. It's like you go out there, you feel bad about taking a trip, $16 a metric ton is what the going price for carbon. So if we're decarbonizing all this and I have a gap on my projects, I need $50,000 on a project, can we sell the carbon credits, right? Can you come up with another way to generate, to fill the gap? How do you get to the stack incentives that you need so it's rebate only for these distressed properties? This is the hit list. And it was oh so familiar last year when I did this talk, right? There are projects here that are on our list that have forced air furnace, AC condenser, a gas range, and a gas water heater in unit. And so I'm back to, how do you pay that $25,000? You can't adjust the rents. You can't adjust the utility allowances. It's deed restricted affordable housing. What do? Well, here's the published utility allowance, right? You gotta go, you're setting rent for a 3-bedroom affordable unit in San Bernardino County, and they can spend 30% of the average area median income, says $1,000 base rent. And the utility allowance, say it's $175. So I've got to subtract that out of the base rent, so what I can charge is $825. And the resident keeps $175 for themselves to pay their bills. And I want to go in and I want to fuel switch that. So you can't do more than 30%. And people want to do the QAC, right? They're saying, well, how about the QAC? Use the QAC. I have our asset managers going, we don't want to do SOMA because we want to do the rehabs with the QAC, the California Utility Allowance calculation. Great for new construction. For rehab, state tax credit allocation committee's guidelines, okay, $175 a month, but you can only lower the utility allowance $15 a year. So I'm going to take it from $175 with a carbon neutral zero net energy project down to $25. And I just spent $1.5 million and I got to service that debt. And they say, no, can't do that, $15 per year maximum. So my question the other day that I've been asking people is, are the state agencies aligned on SB 100? If we're trying to do this, why is TCAC, why do they have like stuff like this in the regulations that hamstring you if you want to do something like this? Why is TCAC allowing people to just replace a furnace with a furnace, right? Like, are we supposed to be working in the same direction? So if I get by that, I mean, the next obstacle is you get to the point where you're about to leap off. And you found the $25,000 per unit to do the fuel switch with the decentralized hot water heater and the range in the unit. You're there. We had a project in Hawthorne. We have them sitting there, ready to go. Call Ken. Ken, we want to do a pilot. Can you help us with pricing on a manager's unit so we can see if this works? Ken says yes. I call Reem. Can you help us with the water? You want to see if we can work? We're ready to go. And the asset manager comes back and says, hey, have you looked at the utility allowances? Yeah, I know about utility allowance. What are you talking about? He said, we're going from gas to electric. If you look at the electric allowance for water heater, for a 2-bedroom unit, $38 to heat with hot water, heat with electricity, $14 for natural gas. I'm like, no, that's not true. We're using heat pumps. They're 3.5 times more efficient. They're like, yeah, but there's nothing here for a heat pump in this technology. All of the utility allowances in the state of California are based on electric resistance. All the utility allowances in the United States are based on electric resistance. And we have the IRA that's out there pushing all this money. There's all this money coming down from the states. Melinda's calling us and saying, hey, I got all this money for energy smart homes, go ahead and convert it. And nobody's been looking at the utility allowances. So about 4 months ago, 5 months ago when this happened, I got on every call I could get on. Some of you guys are probably on the call and they're like Tim's gonna come off mute, and I just rant. For like 5 minutes, I'm like, is anybody looking at this? You had Hawthorne Terrace, 150 units or so. We looked at the operational cash flow, and it was gonna impact us $150,000 in the negative in a year. It killed the project, okay? And there's projects here, these are the utility allowances, published utility allowances in 2024. I know I can crush it in the county of San Bernardino. I know I can really crush it in the county of San Diego, right? They're really, really high. If I can get the utility allowances down in those areas, if I can use something other than the published utility allowance, I got a chance. So we've got to get on the phone, and I said, Secretary Fudge just got to issue an executive order and say, everybody in the United States, because of the IRAs, if you want to do a heat pump for water heating, what you're going to do is use the natural gas water heater allowance, or you're going to take the electricity in that column and divide by 3. I'm like, it's that simple. Everybody, NRDC, Panama Bartholomew, the governor's office, the treasurer's office, RMI, Architecture 2030, Ed Monster, anybody I could get my hands on, I'm like, you guys gotta help. Like, we're desperate. We want to show people it's possible, but we're getting kneecapped. And then I came to CABEC the other day, which is why my presentation was late for Linda. And the county of San Diego came in here and they introduced a heat pump line here with an asterisk for water heating. And if you go down to the bottom, it says, please note the water heating natural gas utility allowance will also be used for water heating heat pump. So we were watching a little bit of like this Frank Lloyd Wright documentary last night, Where's Print? So we were watching this guy came on, and when he was building Falling Water and he was like procrastinating on it, when they finally got the commission to do this in the Great Depression, he said, Hosanna, a client, he put it on his board, and this client walked past it. That's how I felt when I saw this. It's like, Hosanna, I got one. And then I sent it out to everybody. I'm like, you guys, this is the model. Everybody needs to do this immediately, right? This opens the door to going into individual people's units. When you can do this now, you've got an option, right? Without this affordable housing, you can't touch it. It is going to be, I'm going to be here next year saying, we really had high hopes and expectations, but the utility allowance is all over the place. We're still screwed up. We can't get into those units, but everybody needs to follow, and they need to follow fast. $2 billion a year between now and 2045 is what we need. And we've got to get to a point where there aren't regulations like this or there are easy fixes. And it's got to happen immediately. And you know, Brian and Luke know, because when this happened, I was like, advocacy committee here, I'm like, you guys, we got to fix this. CABEC's got to take a position. We want to electrify, okay? This is what we need to do when we come back next year, you guys. It is hopefully more of continuing grass, but we want new projects to share. Like we're slowly working through the portfolio, 5-10 projects a year, and I said we might decarbonize by 2030. I think that this stall, we lost a year where we had 4 or 5 projects that could not move, they can now move. But we want to get there. When we open the door for these projects, we're dragging all the other nonprofits with us. And when we can do it with affordable housing, you can do it everywhere, right? We don't have, you know, our restrictions with rental housing, right? So if it is raise the rent for market rate and share it, great, but affordable housing, we just got so many obstacles. Any questions? Thank you. Just like 5 or 6 minutes. I mean, does anybody want to talk about anything? This is, again, ongoing conversation.
How'd you get San Diego? Who stepped in, you know? Someone.
It is, I'm telling you, the guy who got us was, and I sent this huge thank you. He was like a program administrative assistant. And when he originally sent an email, we're working with Bottom Line Utilities, who has a great guy who does advocacy, Rob, who does their advocacy. And he originally came to us and said, yeah, I'm talking to this guy at San Diego Community Housing who said they'd help us, they'd revise it. And I'm like, Rob, it can't be an email. This is legal, because if we adjust the rents and it's not published, then National Court couldn't be sued, because if we set the rents based on a non-published, published utility law schedule, somebody could go get an attorney and then they'd come back to us. So it has to be published. So he pushed it, and when I got the email, it was from the same guy. He said, it's good to go, but at the very bottom of this, it says HUD form, that's what we want. It's on their website and it says HUD. So at this point, I'm like, I'm so glad you were able to do this. I don't even care if he did this on him, he's just going rogue. I don't even care. If it's on your website, I can use it, I've got legal cover, now we can do what we need to do. I'm assuming it's not, I'm assuming somebody saw this, but this is absolutely what needs to happen everywhere. Right? But until then, it's an obstacle, okay? It's already hard enough. Really, you get to the finish line, or the starting line, you're about to go over. Everybody's there with you and you're like, really? That? I gotta deal with that? And so you hear the frustration in my voice. This is me on the call with like these policy people where everybody's talking about it, and I'm like, can you know how hard this is? And now I've gotta deal with this obstacle, and nobody's really thought about it because nobody has to look at the financing of paying debt on affordable housing projects. So it was a challenge. It took one guy. And if this is the domino that starts falling, we should be giving him the CABEC Member of the Year award. Analyst in San Diego, because hopefully the dominoes will fall and everybody will follow. Jen.
Obviously, you guys are blazing the trail in California, but do you find your peers are starting to catch on to what you're doing and
Yeah.
making the same changes?
We were talking about this, Pierre and I, there are people in the Bay Area who are doing this. We will talk to anybody and share anything that we're doing with anybody, especially in affordable housing. So,
Tom White.
yeah, Tom White, yeah. You guys have Tom up at Eden Housing, Conrad. So Tom used to come here, and I sent him an email on the first day of text, and I said, let's have lunch at CABEC. You coming? And then, but he's one of those guys who speaks our language. The Mercy Housing has Jackie Slocum. Chinatown has, community development has Michelle Tron. There are people out there working the way that we are in National Court to try to make this happen, and it's open source. Like the good, the bad, and the ugly, we're gonna share it. I wish you would share our risk, but we'll tell you when things go wrong to be careful about putting the heat pumps into an enclosed space without adequate ventilation. Because you might get stuff like that, and doing the economics on the operational energy. A kilowatt's not worth 18 cents like it is in Chicago. Okay, in California, you gotta look at the actual rates and make sure that you're transparent with that.
So you're using the sun run for these, are they beholden to NEM 3.0?
No.
Okay,
No.
so if it's affordable, they get exempted from that too, and they can make money.
The legislation was written specifically, the exemption was written. Originally, the first drafted was, yeah, we hear you, but only care households will be exempt. And 20% of our households are care, everybody else is not care. So we really, really pushed back. The PUC heard it, and they said any project that could qualify for SOMA, whether you take the money or not, is exempt from NEM 3.0. So that's the provision that keeps us out of it when we look at the payback on this. This is why batteries don't work for affordable housing, because we have NEM 2. 20-cent export rates to the grid, we're singing all day long. Right.
So those systems were exempt, they're not like prorated, like they get an exemption for 20 years?
No, I think that it is for the life of the property. Thankfully, right? Because we want you want to be able to share the benefit of SOMA with the residents and the people who are serving these communities. It's really hard to operate affordable housing. We want enduring assets where we can put the money back into the properties.
Yeah, the other question I want to ask was, the gas price that you look at,
yeah.
Are you projecting the increase in gas so that when you're selling this, because you show
yeah.
profit already, you show
yeah.
the great delta already
yeah.
in current projects, but are you, because that's also a selling point of gas is going to increase.
Yeah, I'd go back to, it's too far back. When we're doing our M&V, we've got 3 lines. One is after, one is before with the original rates, and then we escalate based on what we saw as last year's escalation rates, and then we match it, right? So if gas goes up 15% and not 3% or something like that, we will include that in there, and now we're making even more money than we would have. So we're trying to measure that because we we want to account for every nickel we can.
But you're conservative about to start and then you'll.
We are, yeah, because we've got to go back and report to the management and our CFO. He needs to know that this is working. On this stuff for affordable housing, we have to do ROIs. Sometimes there's gaps, and we say, well, let's lend the money to the property, because if you stop paying the gas company and you look at the return on investment, if you're coming out of pocket like Sycamore Springs, we did the analysis when we thought we were going to lose your money, and I'm like, 6 or 7 year payback, but like an 18 to 20% return on investment. And I'm going through the portfolio now and saying, why do we have our money parked in a savings account earning 4% interest? Why don't we start taking our money and investing in this? Can I take some of my retirement money and invest in this? And you give me 20%, right? That's the thinking that I think we need to take with this. Like, if you can't invest with this, like the stuff that Joel's doing in market level, if you look at this, the return on investment, if you get there in these properties, that's what we should be doing, because then it's back to, if making money in capitalism or living in a capitalistic country and trying to avoid cost to the utility companies is not your goal, then tell me what is, right? Other questions? I think we're right on time, you guys.
2:31.
Hosanna.
Very well.